sales. So there's a significant increase there. And then the distributions that we just talked about. The first quarter net profits after distributions were $40,455. That's a 142% increase over last year's first quarter. And a lot of that had to do with the continued sales increase that we've seen over this past 8 months. The first quarter distributions were $22,404. $17,677 of that was to the town and to the ESC Park and Foundation and the library and the 4 schools. Law enforcement got $1,970, and the Alcohol Drug Coalition of Iredell was $2,757. Our retained working capital as of the end of the first quarter was $294,932. And that, now to talk about the month of October, which is a standalone month, being that the first quarter was the end of September. Revenues for October were $204,868. We're averaging right now $204,744 per month since the beginning of this fiscal year in July. So we're continuing to see that increase in sales, even though they are coming down slightly, and that has to do with people going back to work and kids are being phased back into classrooms. So we're seeing that, and again, based on the news today, unfortunately, that may be a reversal when I'm before you at the end of this quarter. I pray not, but it certainly wasn't good news today. Cost of goods was $107,081. Our gross profit was $47,790. Operating expenses were, we had 3 payrolls in the month of October, so they were operating expenses were considerably higher than what they would normally be. They were right at $38,000. Net profit for the month was $9,808. Our retained working capital after the month of October is now $317,953. We are, by the accountants' calculations at the end of the fiscal year, and speaking of which, we did get a clean audit at the end of the fiscal year, but we, the maximum allowed working capital retention is $414,071 for this coming year. Our forecast, the budget for this coming year is $1,742,800. That forecast, the forecast for that has now been revised based on our actual revenues for the first 4 months, first quarter plus October. We're currently looking at, if we were to stay on the trajectory we're on right now, we would probably do in the neighborhood of $2.4 to $2.5 million in sales, which would be about 37% above what our budget is. And budgeted profit for this year was $148,220, but and budgeted distributions were $68,000. Currently, based on what we're looking at, we're probably looking more in the range of $240,000 in profits and probably $110,000 in distributions. And those distributions are across that group of entities that I have spoken to previously. We're currently at full staffing with no indications at this moment that there would be any need to add additional payroll. Spoke of the clean audit. In fact, I believe Evelyn did send a copy over to Steve, and hopefully you got a copy, or there were copies provided to him for you. So if you don't have a copy, we will get copies. Make sure you do have copies. Did you get one, Brian? Okay, well, hopefully Steve's got them.
I think you emailed those out, didn't you?
Okay, okay.
You didn't see them?
Mhm.
Okay, I'll make a note of
And lastly, we're averaging, right now, our inventory is up around $200,000 on average for the month, which is up about 25,000 from when I was here in July. So we're getting ready for Thanksgiving and the Christmas holiday season. We do have our Christmas packs in the store now for people who are looking for gift packages for family and loved ones. And that's my report, and I'll be more than happy to entertain any questions that you have, and hopefully I'll know an answer.
Great.
New warehouse extension's all complete?
Pardon me?
The warehouse extension's all complete?
Yes, it is. That's, and we're in fact occupying it, and I don't think we really did that any too soon, because it's, if you were to walk in there, it looks almost full now itself.
That's certainly a milestone, you know, for the 4-year period to have that extension to the warehouse. Could you go back 4 years to the ribbon cutting and remind us all what the projection was of time before you broke even?
The ABC Commission said 5 years, it would take 5 years to break even with a new board and new store.
So you've got 317,000 profit this quarter, including October, and forecasting 2.4 million next year. You're way ahead of the curve there.
Well, it's all, of course, some of this, I wish I could sit here and tell you I knew what was going to happen tomorrow, but this whole thing is just sort of like a runaway train just because of the pandemic, and so it could all shut off tomorrow, and then again, it could even go in another direction based on the unknowns.
The store got out of the gate really fast, and that was before the pandemic. You were on trajectory to exceed earlier than the 5-year period at that time, I believe.
Well, we did. We were, the consultant who did the study for the council projected that we would do about 1.38 million. I didn't know from that study whether that was over a 5-year period that we would reach that point, but we actually did that in the first year, even though we'd only budgeted, you know, right at $1 million, and actually it was more like 780,000, I believe, as I recall now, that we had forecasted. But it has grown steadily, and again, a lot of it has to do with a lot of the new rooftops that have come online, and folks that have found us from other parts of Perth Road, for instance, that choose to come here rather than to have to go and deal with the traffic up in down in Mooresville. So there's, you know, some of what this growth is, I think, will still be there when the dust clears or the fog clears from the pandemic.
You know, Leighton, you know, Councilman Bryant's question, what did we do the first, and it wasn't even really a full fiscal year? We made money,
Yeah,
and you weren't supposed even to break even till 5 years.
right.
To me, that's the bottom line. We beat the odds big time, and we continue year over year to increase.
Well, it's certainly right place at the right time, but accolades to you, your effort, your staff's effort, and the board's time and investment in the operation. There's a lot of volunteer work that went in there that has obviously paid off, and I think you're a marketing genius.
Stroke of luck, but I would like to say that Evelyn Walls, the general manager, obviously she has been the reason, I think, for so much of all the things that have happened there, just because of her can-do spirit and her hard work ethic. She's been a real joy to get to know and to work with, and to see the enthusiasm that's there. She's been an easy person to train just because of all those requisite talents that are necessary. she didn't know a whole lot when she came in, but there wasn't very much time that had gone by that she didn't know more than most.
Good. Thank you, Layden.
Thank you all, I appreciate it. Yes, sir.
If you would take it back to yourself and your staff for the excellent job that the ABC store has done for us and continues to do for us, and on behalf of the town and all the organizations that are receiving money, thanks to you and your staff there.
Well, thank you.
Much
I will
appreciated.
certainly make sure everybody gets that, and I thank you for the opportunity to be a part of it. And
And we have another hundreds of new houses going under roof with COs in the next year or so, so the projections are probably right on target.
And I can tell you, there's about 360 are gonna be coming on in my backyard. I mean, I hear that, it feels like they're back in the backyard now.
Leighton, let me ask real quick to his statement. Are you at all, is the board at all looking south down to exit 42 for second store location?
I would like to, the answer to that is yes. But we were gonna bring you some conversation about that, and we intend to do that. We feel like we need to do something pretty quickly because the cost of land down there is skyrocketing as we speak. And we'd like to go ahead and at least get land, if nothing else, to have that so that when the time does present itself to be, when the business plan and the model says, yes, it's time to pull the trigger, that we're in a position to do that.
Well, the development that's planned for down there, that by itself could probably support a second store, and that's all built out.
Thank you again, Layden.
Thank you all, I
We
appreciate it.
it. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
The next item on our agenda is our J. Hoyt Hayes Troutman Memorial Library. And I believe we've got our magnificent librarian here, Ms. Kelly Goodwin.
Hello. All right. Well, first I just wanted to either remind or inform the public that the library is open. We're still getting lots of phone calls every day asking if we're open. We've been open since September. We are running unlimited hours, so a lot of people are not quite used to that yet, but right now we are operating just Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. We're not doing any programming right now, but people are able to come in, use computers, check out books, browse the shelves, and all of that. Patrons are required to wear a mask, and we can provide one if they don't have one. Currently, we're running on a 20% capacity, so our capacity is 12. We've only hit that a couple times, so for the most part, people just gonna come in, browse for a few minutes, or they reserve their books ahead of time and leave, so it hasn't been too much of a problem. We have minimized the amount of seating that's in the library, so if you've been into the library, all of our comfy furniture is in storage for the time being, and that will come back eventually. We've also reduced the number of computers that we have available because all of our computers are very close to each other. So to allow for social distancing, we've shut down every other computer. So because of that, we've also reduced the time limits so people aren't waiting for computers. So it used to be 3-hour time limits on the computer, so right now they're limited to 1 hour. Also, that hasn't been too much of an issue yet. And we also unfortunately had to remove the toys from the children's area because we would just constantly be sanitizing everything, so those will also come back. We have a pretty rigorous sanitizing schedule for high-touch areas, so throughout the day we are going around sanitizing door handles and computers and the self-check kiosks and the countertops, and we sanitize computers after each use, so we're keeping up on all of that. We're also quarantining our books for 3 days, so when people return them, they might get late notices, but we are also waiving any late fees right now, so that's all pretty good. As I said, we're not doing any in-person programming right now, but we are doing virtual programming. So all of that is currently being held on the library's Facebook page. We don't know quite yet when we'll be reintroducing in-person programming. Hopefully soon, but we can make a plan and then it could all change. So you guys know all about that. We also have a new service called Express Books. We started that service at the beginning of shutdown back in March, or end of March. So what that is a service that allows patrons to either buy new books that they didn't know about before. All they have to do is fill out a little survey. They tell us what kind of books that they like, and then a staff member will go around and pull the books for them. So it really helped us when we were closed, because even though the library was closed, we were still working, and people couldn't come in and browse the shelves, so we were essentially browsing the shelves for them. But since that kicked off, it really has been very popular, so we're going to continue that service. Just to give you an idea, since we started that service, just at the Troutman Library alone, we have filled 140 Express Books orders and over 600 Express Book orders throughout our whole system. That's been pretty good. Also, our Friends of the Library had a meeting on October 12th. So just want to give you an update on the status of the Friends. Let's see. The Friends of the Library received $1,700 in memory of Paul Houghton. He was, his father-in-law was J. Hoyt Hayes. And then they also received $1,635 in memory of the former Friends of the Library member, Winky Powell. Friends are currently working on memorials for Mr. Houghton and Mrs. Powell. So they're planning on reaching out to the families and seeing what they wanted to do, and possibly using any leftover to go towards the future library expansion. We also received a $500 grant from the Dowd Foundation to use for library programs when we do library programs again. And the Friends of the Library special account, which is funded through donations from the ABC store, currently has a balance of $12,461. So it's doing pretty well. And as I said, all of that will go towards a future expansion of the library. At the October meeting, the Friends called for nominations for board members. All board members were voted to stay in their current positions for another year. So those are Maxine Hargis is president, Jody Barkley is vice president, Karen Nielsen is our secretary, and Bruce Humes is the treasurer. And the next Friends of the Library meeting will be January 14th at 5. I wanted to give you an update on our staff. While the library was closed, one of our part-timers, Seth Ledford, was promoted to a full-time position at our Statesville location. So we have a new staff member. Well, she's not really new, but she's new to you guys. Tamara Hicks filled the vacant position. She was a volunteer at the Statesville Library, and she's a current student at UNCG working on a master's in library science. Finally, I've spoken with Kim about this, and we would like to request just to switch to a quarterly meeting for the time being, just that there's no library programs or anything going on, and we could start that maybe January 2021. So.
Any questions for our library manager?
I just wonder if your Friends of the Library committee has thought or given any thought to doing any type of memorial or anything to one of the past members that passed away, Steve Rimmer.
They did. They have a brick, so in honor of Steve Rimmer. So that will be going out in the library's courtyard in memoriam. As of right now, they haven't discussed anything else, but there probably will be something, because that happened right around the same time when that meeting scheduled. So probably at the January meeting they'll be able to discuss that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? Thank you for asking that. Was going to be my question, but you took it, but that's good.
Sorry.
Any other questions from council? All right, thank you. Good to see you.
Thanks,
Good to have you back on the schedule. All right, the next items on our agenda are new business items. The first item is consideration for the adoption of Resolution 1420, titled Resolution Adopting the 2020 Ardell County Hazard Mitigation Plan for the town of Troutman. And counting the number of people in the room, I don't think we over exceeded our occupancy, because we do have the Director of Emergency Management here, Mr. Kent Green. If you would, please talk to us about the hazard mitigation plan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Ms. Davis told me I only had 2 hours to go through this book.
What, was that by yourself, or was that?
In lieu of reading the 780 pages, I opted to just give you an overview of the process. Every 5 years, FEMA requires the county and its municipalities to undergo a review of the jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan. The hazard mitigation plan is basically a document that allows us to identify risks and hazards and vulnerabilities in our community, and then develop strategies to address those hazards, risks, and vulnerabilities, so that we can minimize the impacts should one of those occur. As we saw today, one of our major impacts is weather. Luckily, I don't think Troutman experienced too much from today's joyous occasion the north end of the county experienced. So we've been at it since about 5:30. But one of the examples is flooding. Very few homes were impacted by floods today, and that's in part by the hazard mitigation plan and the efforts it took to relocate homes out of the floodplain. Troutman has a major interstate that comes through here. You've got a U.S. highway on Main Street, so transportation is always a risk. So we look at those, we apply some analysis to them, and then develop plans and steps to attempt to mitigate those occurrences. We can't address everything. We can't always foresee what may or may not happen in our communities, but at least we have a plan to move forward. The state has assigned us a partner with Rowan County in the state's infinite wisdom. 2 very demographically and geographically different counties, but that's who we're paired with. And again, this is done every 5 years. The Ardell County Board of Commissioners adopted this plan back in July, and now it's time for the municipalities to do so. FEMA has approved the document, and we're going through the steps to formalize community adoption of the plan. I'll be glad to take any questions you may have.
Okay. I think council's they've all read all 700 pages, so.
Then you're a step up on me, Mr.
All right.
Mayor.
So I have a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
Paul Bryant. I took a deep dive into it, read all 720 pages this morning. No, not true, but I did go through it. And I didn't see anything in there specifically pertaining to funding or financial risk that the municipalities face in implementation of any part of this plan. So if there is an event, how is it funded? How is the cleanup paid for?
That goes through our office, and that's a process called public assistance. Now that terminology compared to individual assistance is a bit confusing. Public assistance, you would think, means assistance to the public. What it actually means is assistance to public entities. So roadways, infrastructure, the bridges that were washed out today, we're already doing damage assessment to figure out, would we qualify for public assistance? And what that means is the damages within town of Troutman, for instance, would need to be or exceed 1% of your annual operating budget. We would file an application for public assistance with FEMA, and then they would go through the process, and it is a long, drawn-out process to receive those funds. It's on a reimbursement
If it's
methodology.
more than 1% of our annual budget.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And we're already doing 2 public assistance programs right now for the county in general, from Tropical Storm or Subtropical Storm Michael that came through last year, as well as now Tropical Storm Ada, I believe is who we're working with now. We just got approved for that yesterday.
So we don't currently have in our town budget, any monies earmarked for mitigation.
No, what this plan allows us to do is be eligible for FEMA hazard mitigation grant funding. We cannot apply for those funds without having this document completed.
So the expectation would be that if it's a major event and it's over 1% for any community or collection of communities, that FEMA would pick up the difference.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Good to know. One last question I have for you is, the population numbers that appear across a number of different charts for a number of different hazards are pretty much all the same for each municipality and for the unincorporated parts of the county. Where did those numbers come from?
Two sources. One that came from the 2010 census as compared to the 2020 census. That's how, I'm sorry, the 2000 census. Unfortunately, the hazard mitigation update cycle is 1 year prior to every census. So we're having a census this year. Those numbers won't reflect here, but in 5 years they will. So they will give us a sort of a retrospective view of where our population is. We know locally our population is far exceeds the 2010 numbers that are in this document, and we know that locally. We have to be able to apply that into our own internal local analysis.
But any funding requirements as a result of a event would not be allocated based on population
No,
back
sir.
to a town?
No, sir.
Is this, yeah, I've just spent quite a bit of time in the last months looking at the Iredell County Housing Unit population estimates, which was updated January of this year.
Correct.
And the Troutman numbers are significantly different than what's in
Absolutely.
this report. So that's why I was asking the question.
Yes, it does not fall back on housing units or population numbers. It's strictly financially based. Now, for individual assistance, the assistance from FEMA that would go directly to a homeowner, for example, during an event, there has to be at least 25 homes damaged, and those homes have to be uninsured or underinsured. So that's a number, but it does not tie to the total number of households in the community.
And my questions and my, concerns is too strong a word. Wanted to know more about the funding and how we tie back, if there is an event, to other sources of funding versus our reserve fund.
Sure. And if we did experience an event where we needed either public assistance or individual assistance, we would use our numbers internally from the state Department of Commerce. It would not tie back to these numbers strictly.
Very good. Didn't want to surprise.
Absolutely, sure.
Sometime next summer with a big storm.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
Other questions for Director Green?
As far as implementation or being a part of the plan, is there any, and if you've answered this question, I apologize, I didn't hear it, any financial cost to the town to be a part of this plan?
Absolutely none, sir. The state actually funds these studies statewide. The county did not pay for this. The state selects the consulting firm that come in and do this. We've been working on this for about a year and a half now. COVID, of course, delayed some of the meetings, caught us right in the middle to when we were supposed to have some public meetings and couldn't have those. The public meetings we did have, we had very little participation, but at no cost to the local governments.
Well, I was very pleased to see how Troutman, as small as we are, stacks up as far as preparedness against some of the other bigger municipalities.
Absolutely, and again, we invited input from all the municipalities. And Troutman was one that did provide some of that input back to the process of the study. And I think with the League of Municipalities award to Chief Fleming and her department, just shows the commitment of the community to making sure that we're serving our residents properly.
Other questions? Director Green, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
The only question, if there's anything you need from us, in the meantime, prior to finalizing it, please let us know. I'll
Absolutely.
work with you on it. Thank you for all
Thank
your
you for your
work on
time.
on COVID. I know it's been taxing, to say the least, and I've been on a lot of calls with you and your team, and please give them a thank you for all that they're doing for the county and making sure that we're all safe.
I certainly will. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening.
The next item on our agenda is,
Need to adopt a resolution.
that's, I don't know if we wanted to, yep. Council, do you want to do that tonight? I was going to ask Mr. Green if he needed us to do it tonight, or do you want to hold off on it?
I think it has to be adopted before the end of the year.
Right,
I have no objection to going ahead and making a motion to adopt.
all right.
I make that motion.
Motion is made to adopt the resolution adopting the 2020 Ardell Rowan Hazard Mitigation Plan for the town of Troutman, as presented by our Director of Emergency Management, Green. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made, received a second. Any question, other question or comment? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. I wanted to make sure I gave you time to review that 700 pages.
I'm glad I didn't have to carry that out of here.
Yes. Next item on the agenda is our zoning request, RZ 2005, applicant Rick and Brenda Morrow, 1.15 acres, located at 530 Hoover Road. PIN is 474-166-4925. Rezoning from rural preservation RP to suburban residential RS. I will now open this public hearing. Mr. Wells?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. As you pointed out, this is a request that was received by the town for a rezoning of a piece of property on Hoover Road. Request was made by the property owners to rezone from rural preservation to suburban residential. The applicant and property owners have no particular specific plan to change the use of the property. It's a single-family home that's been in the family for a number of years. And the intent is to rezone that parcel of land and to retain the property as a family homestead. Scrolling through some of the maps here that are also in your agenda packets showing the location of the property. If you want to hold up on that just real briefly, let me advance it one. One of the plans that the owners of the property do have is to re-subdivide the property in a manner in which the parcel will be somewhat enlarged from about 1.15 acres to about 2.5 acres. You see on the map in front of you, the subject parcel is outlined in red, and the proposed re-subdivision boundaries are shown in yellow. The Morrows do own the property immediately to the east, so they would be reconfiguring that somewhat to increase the size of the smaller of the two parcels. That cannot be accomplished under the existing rural preservation zoning classification because the minimum lot size is 3 acres.
with the rezoning, they would be able to create that smaller of the two parcels, which, as I mentioned, is about 2.5 acres. There is another factor that is relevant to this situation as well, and let me describe that real briefly. Approximately 2 years ago, the board may recollect that there was about 24 property owners in the Hoover Road and Perry Road corridor in that part of town that had petitioned the board to have their properties rezoned from suburban residential to rural preservation. A number of those properties, and I believe it was about 6 parcels, were smaller than 3 acres in size. And the decision at the time was to not include those parcels or properties in that petition for rezoning because it would have resulted in the creation of about a half a dozen non-conforming parcels. As a result, those parcels were excluded from the petition, and with the exception of this particular parcel, were not included in the rezoning ordinance. This particular parcel was erroneously or mistakenly included in that rezoning ordinance. So part of the justification or rationale behind rezoning this back again is to rectify that oversight that took place about 2 years ago. I'd be happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Any questions for Mr. Wells?
I'd like for Mr. Wells to share with us again what the recommendation is from the zoning board.
Thank you. I was just about to get to that. The recommendation, this was presented to the Planning and Zoning Board. Planning and Zoning Board did recommend unanimously in favor, and its staff recommendation is in favor of it as well.
Other questions for Mr. Wells?
Our strategic master plan, I think, shows that area transitioning from low to medium density. Am I correct there? That area?
I'm sorry?
Our strategic master plan shows that area transitioning low density to medium density?
Actually, our future land use plan, and if you can go back a couple, I think it's one more. It does show that area as, and that darker green is considered rural residential zoning classification. The black line on that map is the current Troutman town limits boundary, and the red line is our extraterritorial jurisdictional boundary, and the subject parcel is almost right dead center in that map right there where the blue star is.
But again, I think our understanding with our strategic plan, land use plan, which of course is tied in, but our strategic plan shows that it's low to medium, and my point being is that we're sticking with that. We're not going against our strategic plan that we just adopted a year and a half ago.
No, I think this is, my professional opinion is this is consistent with, this request would be consistent with the strategic plan and the future land use plan.
Thank you.
The
Appreciate it.
strategic plan paints that area down Hoover Road, Perry Road, as either suburban residential or rural rural.
Mhm.
And if we go back, as Mr. Wells appropriately stated, those properties that were less than 3 acres were kept suburban residential because we had just approved our UDO, which stated you had to have 3 acres or more in order to be preserved. And that's what happened, and there was, I think, an error that kept this parcel off of the RS list versus the rural preserve list.
Sure.
Other comments for Mr. Wells? Anyone else like to speak on behalf of this zoning request? Okay. I will now close this public hearing. Council, you've heard from Mr. Wells. At this time, I'll ask for consideration for the adoption of ordinance 1620 titled, an ordinance changing the zoning classification of the after described property from rural preservation RP to suburban residential RS. Is there a motion to consider this adoption?
I'd like to make that motion.
Okay, I've got Mr. Harris making the motion in favor of the adoption, and Mr. Bryant seconding the motion. Is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Any against? Likewise. Hearing none, motion passes. The next item is the consideration for our consistency statement. Is there a motion to address our statement of consistency?
I'll make that motion, sir. Make the motion on consistency statement. Rezoning to suburban residential is consistent with the 2035 future land use map to allow appropriate low-density, single-family residential development along with their customary accessory uses. The request is consistent with the currently adopted Unified Development Ordinance. The request is reasonable and in the public interest as it proposes to allow the retention of residential development in areas of Troutman where it is appropriate.
There's a motion on the floor to approve this consistency statement as consistent with our land use plan. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made, received a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Next item on our agenda is the consideration of appointments to town boards. I'll turn it over to our clerk to maybe discuss our two options here.
Okay, thank you. There are two positions to consider. First is to consider the appointment of an in-town voting position to the Board of Adjustment. Applicant Tammy Hatley has applied. This appointment is to fill the unexpired term of Matthew Weber that expires May 9th, 2022. The Board of Adjustment currently has an additional 3 positions available, which is an ETJ position and 2 alternate positions other than this one. Matthew Weber resigned on 10/12, same day as Jan Huffman. So that put us down 2 more people there. The second is to consider appointment of an inside alternate to the Design Review Board, applicant Stephen Zittle, for a 3-year term. This position has been vacant since November of 2017. I have received no other applications for these 2 positions.
Okay. And I believe the 2 applicants are here.
They are here tonight.
I would ask if they have any comment. Welcome to comment.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
I'll be glad
Ms.
to.
Hatley first.
Hello, I'm Tamara Hatley, and I actually grew up in this area, went to Troutman Middle School, and graduated at South Iredell. We left on a 5-year plan pursuing my husband's postal career, and it ended up taking 30 years to get back home. But we have both retired, and we are living in the Falls Cove at Lake Norman subdivision off Autumn Lee. Happy to be back home with our family, and I felt like as a retired municipal clerk that many people don't have a lot of experience with this dry Board of Adjustment stuff, and I did take the class with David Owens and Adam Lovelady for the new 160D requirements, and I thought it'd be a good way to help contribute to my new home.
Great.
And get to meet some folks in town too.
Great. Thank you. I think there's another requirement. We talked to her about that. No, there's really not.
Okay.
Mr. Zittle?
Good evening, I'm Steve Zittle. My wife and I have lived in Mooresville for the past 4 years and just bought a home in Falls Cove, Streamwood, so
Oh,
right around the
okay.
corner.
Yes.
And we moved in July, and I saw the sign on the message board that you were looking for, volunteers for boards, and I thought, what a great way to get involved in the community. We go to church right up in Statesville off of Amity Hill Road, and so we passed through Troutman, and we've loved the area since we've been here.
Great. Thank you.
Professionally, I'm in the funeral business, manage, about 19 rooftops in 5 states, travel just a little bit, but have some experience in that area. Thought design review board would be kind of neat.
Good. Thank you for seeing the light as you move to Troutman.
Thank you.
Council, you've had a chance to meet the 2 recommended appointments here. Is there a motion to approve these appointments?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Accept both candidates.
Motion is made that we approve both candidates, one for Board of Adjustment, Ms. Hatley, and one for Design Review Board, Mr. Zittle. Is there any question or comment? Okay.
Thank you for volunteering. Look forward to working with you. You're both neighbors.
Good. I'll now call for the vote. All those, excuse me, is there a second?
Second.
I've got 2 seconds, so
Yeah,
I'll Mr. Hinkle, since I got Mr. Harris earlier. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you both so much for volunteering and considering to provide your service to the town. We appreciate volunteers, and as we grow, we like our small town feel, but we also understand that growth is somewhat inevitable, and we want to make sure that we control that growth, and appreciate your assistance in helping us do that. So thank you so much. The next item on the agenda is comments from council and myself. I'll open it up for comments from the council right now. Any comments?
I'll start off, Mr. Mayor.
Great.
I'd like to wish a healthy and happy Thanksgiving to all our residents. And yesterday was our Veterans Day, and I'd like to echo what our mayor said. I'd like to thank our veterans for our freedom and our right to vote, and for all their sacrifices that they've given us to live a free life. And also, maybe if Brian could check into this, our sign, our marquee sign that comes in welcoming the town, the time is incorrect, if we could get that updated.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
There are other comments?
I'd just like to say, after reading 720 pages about hazardous events, that I'm glad that our rain event today did not have any more of a negative impact on our family. I know that our public works department was out making sure that the drains were clear and so on and so forth. And they're appreciated for that. And we're fortunate compared to some of the community resources.
Yes. I had one small tree fell in my yard. Any assistance you'd like to provide is welcome. No, just kidding. Mr. Harris.
I just remind everyone that I've been noticing in the paper this week that the COVID numbers here in Iredell County are increasing large numbers. For everybody, make sure you wear your mask, social distance, and be alert. Stay safe out there. And then, on behalf of Rick and Brenda Moore, again, I'd like to thank Brian and Jonathan for their help in resolving this piece of property issue. We went through it pretty smooth. I think they'll agree to it. Because of you guys.
Mr. Hinkle, any comments?
Not really. Things seem to be going fairly well. My condolences to my learned colleague here for having such time to read 700 pages of, I'm sure, enlightening information, but may you have a happier life as we get closer to Christmas.
I slept well.
Folks, I got to pick on him once in a while, so bear with me.
Okay,
Other than that, though, I'm fine, sir.
thank you. Ms. Williams? Okay, great. I too would like to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving and understanding that as of tomorrow, our directive from our governor is that we go from 25 down to 10 indoor occupants. And again, I think that's, difficult considering we've been in this for now, 9 months. I think Thanksgiving is always that time for family to get together and, family coming in from out of state and other places around the country. And but I hope everyone remains safe and do all you can to keep your distance. And as Mr. Harris said, wear your mask. And again, we don't want to have any of our residents who contract this virus. Again, appreciate all the support that the community has done to support themselves and others. So thank you for that. At this time, the next item on our agenda is our report from our town manager, Mr. Grusbeck.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think my microphone is out, so please let me know if anybody can not hear me. Just to echo the mayor's comments, the executive order from Governor Cooper will extend to December 4th. So there obviously be some sort of revisitation at that point on how large or how small meetings can be. The way things are going, I wouldn't expect meetings to be much larger unless there's some sort of divine intervention as far as the COVID between now and then. But we'll keep our eye on it. And again, as I mentioned the other night, we've developed some internal policies to help us stay a little bit safer here in town hall, and we'll do our best to comply with those. The only other thing I would mention right at the moment is we have planning director interviews scheduled for next week. We received 9 applications. We found 3 that I think are excellent candidates for interviews. We will be assisted by Sally Williams, Paul Bryant, Brent Tedder, and Randy Farmer. Of course, Mr. Tedder and Mr. Farmer are from the planning board. Jonathan, I believe, will be adding some expertise as well. Those interviews will be taking place next week by Zoom. I originally was planning on scheduling those in person, but I think out of an abundance of caution, it's appropriate that maybe we stay as distant as possible as long as everybody's familiar with the technology. And the applicants were more than willing to do that. And with that, I will tap out if anybody has any other questions.
Question for Mr. Grusbeck? Okay. All right. If anything else from the staff? We were putting our attorney on here. You have a burning testimony you'd like to give, Gary?
I always say you're most say what the attorneys want.
That's a good thing. Next item on our agenda is to hold a closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318-11A4 to discuss economic development, and pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318-11A6 to discuss personnel. Council, is there a motion for us to go into closed session? Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
In opposition, hearing none. Thank you all for being here. And again, to the Overcast family, again, we really appreciate the service that you all have done, as well as Red did for our town. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yep, so I was pointing with that, closed session. I think we've got our esteemed, EDC, here. We've also need, Brian. We need yourself, and I believe, Brian, anyone else at this point?
Maybe a good idea for Jonathan to,
Okay,
stick around if he's able.
all right, Jonathan? And Kim, yes.